Hi, I'm Jenny, homeschool mama of 4 boys, ages 11, 9, 8, and 5, and we are entering our 7th year of homeschooling. It's hard to believe it has been that long, but it has been a wonderful journey. Today, I'm going to talk about homeschooling routines and how to make it work for your family. Um, we are given the freedom to homeschool our children how we want. We are given the freedom to homeschool our children with what we want. We are also given the freedom to homeschool our children when we want. They don't have to sit down in their homeschool classroom from 9 to 3 every day. It just doesn't have to happen that way. Every family situation is unique, and every family's homeschool schedule and routine is going to be unique as well. One thing to keep in mind as we look at this is that in a school, in a classroom, teacher, he or she, has 20 students that they have to deal with the logistics of during the day. 20 students is going to make some time requirements. So when you are at home, you just have your children. There's not as much involved in getting them moved to where they need to go throughout the day. So it's not going to take you as long. Kindergarten, first grade, an hour. Second and third grade, 2 hours. Third, fourth, fifth grade, 3 or 4 hours. So keep that in mind as you're planning and considering taking a homeschool journey. The first thing I want to say is to be flexible. It's a new experience if you're first starting homeschooling, and it's going to be a trying time in trying to figure out and navigate all of these new things. Allow some flexibility for yourself. If you have things that are going and not so smoothly, it's okay. Change it. Find a new way, figure something out, move on with a new solution. That's okay. Be flexible. Be flexible in your schedule. Do you work nights and you sleep during the mornings, so you want your afternoon time to be your homeschool time? That's okay. Do you work weekends and your days off are during the week? You can be flexible in that you do a lot of your homeschooling on those days off, or your kids can have those days off too, and you can enjoy the days together, and they can do homeschooling on the weekend, on the days that you're working. Um, Find what works for you, and it doesn't have to look like everyone else's schedule. The next thing is to get help. Are your kids at a daycare providers? Could they be doing some of their independent math and reading while they're there? Does your daycare provider have a science background and would like to do some of this science homeschooling with your children? Do you have a grandparent that would like to come and read with your children or do some of their projects with them? Do you have a next door neighbor that would like to come over and take part in it? Our next door neighbor is actually doing a science project with my kids right now with monarch butterflies and milkweed plants and caterpillars and the whole bit, and she is having a blast doing it with them and is very thankful that I've allowed that interaction to happen. But see who in your life and your children's lives can help. It doesn't have to be solely on the mom. It doesn't have to solely be on dad. It can be a group effort from everyone that loves them. And in that, it would be a much more enriching process for everyone involved. Next thing is to have a routine and not a schedule. Have a flow to your day. Know what comes next. Know what you need to do, but don't have strict times. Allow yourself to go down a rabbit hole of science or history. We recently had a homeschool lesson where we were talking about the Stone Age. But then one of the boys asked, well, what about the Iron Age or the Brass Age? And so we ended up looking at the dates for those and what was the line that changed them, or we moved from one time to a next. And then we ended up talking about what metals are in brass, what metals are in copper, what is pig iron, how is pig iron made, how versus steel is made, and we completely blew through the next thing on our routine, or what we, if we would have had a schedule, we would have been so off of it. But we have a routine. So we knew that when we finished that lesson, we moved on to the next thing of our day and went from there. And there was no stress about allowing an extra hour of our time for history that day. The kids were inspired, the kids were interested, and they were learning because they were interested in what we were doing. The next thing is loop scheduling. Um, this is, we do our math and we do our reading every day, but when it comes to history and science and geography and those kinds of things, I have a list that day 1 we do history, day 2 we do geography, day 3 we do science, and then we go back to day 1. So just whatever day that is, whatever, if we did history yesterday, we just move to the next one on the list. This allows to give us some flexibility in our schedule. My husband works in odd hours. He works on call and he travels. So his day off and his day home with the family changes all the time, and we sometimes can't predict it. So if Daddy's home that day, we drop our schooling, we spend the day with Daddy, and we go on the next day, and I just pick up on the next section of that loop and go from there. And allows us a lot of flexibility, and like I said, with family time, or if we want to go to the museum that day, or someone calls and say, hey, let's go to the beach with friends, no big deal. We just move on the next day, and we're not set to that schedule. Oh my gosh, we can't go because our schedule says we can't do it this day. No, we are just move on with the loop. Next thing is a planner. Having a planner. There are a million different planners you can purchase out there. There are digital planners. There are bullet journal planners you can create. There are all kinds of homeschool moms that are selling planners that you can have. Find what works for you. It'll take some tweaking to get what works. But for me, what I have found with our family flexibility and schedule is I use a blank planner. And at the end of the day, I write in it what we've done. Now I know through what projects we've working on, or what our routine, what our curriculum routines are, what we're gonna do. But at the end of the day, I write down and keep a record of what the boys have done. They did this math lesson, they did this many reading pages, or they did some free writing this day, or we worked on this science project. I do it at the end of the day and I write it down. That way my husband can take a look at it and see when he gets home from his trip, see what the boys have done and talk about it. But I'm not writing out a week's worth at a time. And then if something happens and we have a beach day, or Daddy's home and we spend the day at the park, I'm not erasing that day and then trying to move everything down. And oh, it's not on Wednesday, it's on Thursday, and dealing with all that. I write it down after and we go from there. That's the way I keep track of what we've done. Another thing is I've been utilizing digital with Google Classrooms with my oldest. He's getting older. He's doing more things independently, and have some more accountability on him for what he needs to be doing. So I've been giving him assignments in Google Classroom. He goes in, he checks it when he's done, but in there I put the assignment, a little bit of detail about it. Okay, you need to do grammar lessons 1 through 5 this week, and here are some little information or tips that I think you'll use for it. He can go in there and do it on his own, or he can also keep track of his, like he's got a fish tank project. He's got a new fish, and he's moving them up to a larger fish tank. Part of his project is he's in charge of researching the different filters that he needs and the different substrates of sand or gravel, whatever he wants to do. So he's been keeping track of which things he wants to buy for his fish tank. He's got links to the Amazon in there. He's got the budget of how much things are going to cost, and he's doing a little bit of project planning and research, and he's keeping it all in there so that I can see it. If Daddy's out of town and they're talking about it, Daddy can pull up the Google Classroom and say, okay, I see what you've done, and let's talk about it. But that's the way that he's learning to plan as well. So it's daunting trying to find a routine and a schedule that works for you. But with some flexibility, with some help, some planning, you'll be able to figure it out and you'll be successful at it. You just got to keep trying, and don't be afraid to change it up. Ask for help and see what works for you. Thank you.